team, we have got 8 weeks left till the end of our drawing challenge, and it's going to get a little bit more serious now. I'm going to show you how to start your portrait. So this month we're going to look at drawing another person's portrait, not our own, and I'm going to show you how to construct it in a nice, easy way. So let's have a look at the steps. Step 1 is to measure your face. Every single face can be broken up into rules of thirds. That means we have 1, 2, 3 sections. So the first section is from the bottom of your chin to underneath your nose. So I'll show you with a pencil. The next section is underneath your nose to your eyebrows. And the final section is your eyebrows to your hairline. Now, some people have fringes, so it does make it a little bit more challenging. But the reason why rules of thirds is super important is because usually or typically 2/3 are similar sizes and 1/3 is either bigger or smaller. And that means we have a recognizable feature. So you might have walked past someone in the street and thought, they have quite a small forehead. Or you might have noticed that they have a slightly bigger nose. And that means we're already subconsciously doing these divisions in our heads. So we're noticing that something is a little bit bigger or a little bit smaller than the other 2/3. So take a minute now, look at my face and measure it and see which feature you think is smaller or bigger than the other two. So hopefully you got it. You guessed that my bottom third is bigger than the other two. So let me show you. We've got my forehead, my nose, they're pretty much the same. And then my chin, you can see that there's a little bit overhanging there. So it means I have a big mouth. So let's apply this theory to a picture and we're going to start constructing it. And over the weeks, we are going to build on this picture and draw ourselves a portrait. Sick. Okay, team. So we have the lovely Cara Delavigne in this picture and we're going to measure her face. So remembering the rules of thirds, we've got 1, 2, 3, and to be honest, it doesn't matter which one's number 1, which one's number 2. But I always tend to measure the chin because there's nothing obscuring it. There's no fringes. There's no bits of hair in the way or, a Mickey Mouse hairline. So using this, I always use this part as my anchor. Now, before I measure it, I want you to try and measure it yourself. Try and check from under the chin to the nose to the eyebrows, and the eyebrows to the forehead. Which two are similar sizes and which one is slightly bigger or slightly smaller than the other two. Okay, so let's check. Now, just notice how I hold my pencil. I've got this weird grip and I'm able to move this around. So I use the top of the pencil as the first part to measure, and then I use my thumb because that is closer to me on this side. I'm over here. And then I've got my 1 unit. So I take that up to the second section and it's just at the top of the eyebrows there. So they're fairly similar. And then I compare that to the forehead. And again, that's a little bit bigger. The forehead really sits on this line here. Plus, this was a little bit higher. So I'm going to compare it in a different way. So I'm going to take the measurement from the top of the forehead to the middle of the eyebrows there. Compare that downwards and you see the big difference in that. And then move that down here and the big difference there. So I know that the forehead is the biggest. So what I need to do now then is figure out my own proportions. Now I can measure this and take this across exactly. So for the sake of our first portrait, let's do that. So I'm going to get my 1 measurement, or my chin measurement, my bottom third. I'm going to take that across and I'm going to get that measurement there. So I'll just extend those lines a little bit to make them nice and clear. And then I'll take my second measurement. So I'm going in between the eyebrows and underneath the nose. Get that on there. I can extend that a bit as well. And then let's get this forehead. So get the top and then there. Okay. So that is the forehead. So these are Cara Delavigne's measurements. Another way I can check just to make sure I've moved that across exactly is to get a pencil long enough to cover her face. So I'm going to get this pencil, pop that on her hairline, and then get my thumb down at the bottom and take that across. And it's pretty much, it's a little bit smaller. So in that case, I'm just going to measure again, because measuring it twice and checking is not a bad thing at all. So that is there. So that one's fine. The second one, that one's fine. It's just at the top there. And then her hairline. There we go. It's that one. Okay. So I'll just extend that and just tidy up my lines. So at the moment I have the exact measurements of her face, and this is going to help me in so many ways when I start to draw the details of her portrait. So now let's get the width of the face. Now the width will be shown by taking your anchor measurement, so we're always referring to the bottom third, the chin, and we're going to compare that to the width this way. So what you want to do is see, if I take that measurement, which is very hard on a camera, and then I pull that across, I'm looking for the furthest or widest part of my face from my center line, so the part where I run straight down my face. And you can see that there's a little bit of a gap there. So that means that the half width of my full face, this half, is smaller than the length of my chin. So let's measure that on hers. What I want to do is get that measurement of the chin, and then I want to rotate it. So you can either measure the right or the left. And to be honest, you should always check it for both sides, because she might be twisted and it might look slightly different. And I just want to put my thumb in the center of her face. So why don't we go from the center of her eyebrows, and then let's check the width going down. So her temple actually does go further than this measurement, and it's the same size when it's right at the top of her nose. So in that case, I'm going to take this measurement of mine, which should be exactly the same as the picture. I've missed a bit. I'm actually going to put my center line on there, and then I want to go further than the width, and when it comes to the top of the nose, it's roughly the same length. So let's just box that in actually on one side, because this tells me everything in this grid will be the face. Nothing should leave the face whatsoever. So good practice. Let's measure the left side as well. Bit difficult from that angle. I'm going to use my finger as the guide and then take that across. So this side, it's basically the same because we have hair coming out there. So in that case, I'm just going to do that. Whereas the right side is in shadow, so it's a little bit more challenging. I'll check that again in just a second. Okay, so let's get this measurement. No. Let's get this measurement again, the chin, and then we'll move that across. So it probably is hair coming on down there. So in that case, I will just trim that down. So there we have it. It doesn't look like much, but what we've done is we've measured it exactly right. We've measured the thirds and we put them on our paper, and we've figured out the width of the piece. So in next week's lesson, we're going to start to add the features and looking at the shadows and the shading. Well, we might wait for the shading. So this week, practice your measuring, see if you can get the rules of thirds, get them accurate, and we're going to give ourselves a really good start with this portrait. Okay, team, I'll see you next week for our next stage of our portrait.